It's been 3 months since Debbie and Carrie left Texas and moved to Patagonia City at the invitation of actress and producer Vicky Jones. After they arrived, Vicky had them appear as guest stars in an episode of the Paul and Vicky/Blazing Beauty Show, Vicky's Allies. The resulting exposure enabled Debbie to resume her modeling career, while Carrie began working as an actual investigative journalist, dealing with hate crimes, business corruption, and domestic abuse cases.
Robot, answer the door.
As you command. I have some very important news to share with you.
Let's hear it.
For the past 15 years, this town and several others have been represented in Austin by a Republican, but he is retiring this year. And the former mayor, Ted Anderson, has announced that he will run to take his place.
Oh, shit. Considering what the Texas state government has already done, banning abortion, banning gay marriage and even banning the use and sale of cannabis, how much worse can things get?
Oh, a lot worse. Check this out.
For too long we have turned away from faith and allowed anything to happen amongst ourselves as a matter of freedom, tolerance, liberty, and social justice. If I am elected to the Texas Senate, I will push for Christianity to be the established religion in Texas, with all laws and procedures in the state government to be based only on biblical teachings. The chosen people of God will rule this state once more.
What the hell? It's like he is not even trying to hide his absolute contempt for the secular standards behind the U.S. Constitution. He actually wants to turn Texas into a theocracy.
Knowing how he used to rule this town, the idea of him representing us in Austin is unacceptable. Someone must stop him.
And that someone should be me. I will run against him to provide the people with an alternative to the twisted extremist.
But you can't do that and also be mayor of this town. Aren't you up for re-election this year?
Yes, but I am confident that someone else can be mayor after me.
Soon afterwards, Sandy makes an announcement on the town's YouTube channel.
Effective 1 week from now, I will resign as mayor of this town so I can run for a place in the Texas State Senate. I want to represent this town in Austin next year and advocate for the civil rights of all Texans and fight against corruption and bigotry there, just as I did when I ran for mayor of this town 4 years ago. What I did for our town, I want to do for all of Texas. Your mother is running for the state legislature in Texas? Yes. And Carrie and I have agreed to return to the town and support her new campaign. For us, this is a matter of our very lives. We must defeat the corrupt bigots that have sought to turn Texas back to how it was a century ago. I am thankful you gave us refuge here, but now my mother needs us. I understand. Give those right-wing bastards hell for me, okay?
Debbie and Carrie now return to the town in East Texas.
Welcome back, sweetheart. We have missed you all. Our mothers and I loved seeing you and Debbie in that episode of the Blazing Beauty Show. You looked amazing. Thanks. We had a lot of fun. Sandy, if you are leaving the mayor's office, who will replace you? Simon Wilson has already told me he is willing to run for the office. Do you trust him? I know he is not like his brother or nephew, but that doesn't mean he is good enough to be your successor. Plus he would have to quit being a science teacher and a hospital administrator. It's Paul.
Vicky, I just heard from my aunt that Mr. Bentley has decided to run for mayor of the town.
Really? I was told that Mr. Wilson was running for the office too.
Yeah, and Mr. Bentley has persuaded my aunt to help him on his campaign.
I think either of them would be acceptable as my successor, so I will remain neutral in this matter and focus on my own campaign to get elected to the Texas Senate. You have a lot of popular support in this town because of your superb track record as mayor, but as a state senator you would represent a dozen other towns besides this one. And how are you going to persuade people in other towns to vote for you? Ted Anderson has an obvious advantage because he professes Christianity and you're known for being an atheist. Maybe you should talk about being a member of a Unitarian Universalist church when asked about religion. At least 3 Unitarians have been President of the United States, and the U.S. Constitution allows for no religious test for public office holders. So it shouldn't matter what you believe.
No, it shouldn't. Fortunately, the percentage of Americans who reject God-centered religions is now about 20%, and those who attend churches are less than 50%. So I hope to appeal to the more open-minded amongst the voters. Ironically, the presidency of Donald Trump, supported by the evangelical Christian community, so repulsed millions of young people that it has served to swell the ranks of those disaffected from religion in general. But that only applies to big cities. Small towns like ours, not so much. This town is a glaring exception. If we do nothing, then nothing will change, so we must do something to make our lives better. That's what my campaign to be mayor 4 years ago proved, and I hope to prove it again this year. Mother Sandy, I don't know if I could ever be a cop in Texas again if I have to enforce laws I don't believe in, such as the state laws against abortion, gay marriage, or the possession and sale of pot. I want to serve and protect the public, not persecute anyone. I understand. Robot, answer the door.
As you command. Carrie, it might interest you to know that while you and Debbie were gone, Mayor Smith and I made the decision together to nullify the state laws against abortion and gay marriage. Same-sex unions will continue to be recognized in this town, and no one will be arrested or prosecuted for performing or having an abortion.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to tell Carrie myself. This town has been made an autonomous entity within the state of Texas. State laws will only be enforced if we deem it necessary for public safety. We will not enforce moral codes based on irrational bigotry. Even the sale of cannabis and the acts of sex workers will not be prosecuted here. We will also accept as refugees migrant workers from other countries. No one, regardless of national origin, will be classed as an illegal alien here. And what you do with your body is your business, as long as you hurt no one else. And what if the state authorities find out about that? They might take you to court. Yeah, and then they will have no business talking about freedom, and we can use their desire to impose fascism on us against them. Well, this is my last day as mayor and it is time for me to leave. Let's go. So what do you think of my proposal?
Having thousands of Texas women to fly to California each year for abortion seems risky, but it's certainly an option they should know about.
And since they would have to pay for their flight to California, we won't charge women who come to us for abortions if they produce a Texas ID card or driver's license. Hello. I am Debbie Smith and today I will be moderating a debate between the 2 candidates to be the next mayor of our town. On the left is Simon Wilson and on the right is Wayne Bentley. Gentlemen, you may proceed with opening statements.
My purpose in running for mayor is to try to make this town more environmentally friendly. Remember the forest fires we had almost a year ago? We were more focused on replacing that forest instead of investigating why the wildfires were so devastating to begin with. As it turns out, forests naturally have fires to burn away excessive plant growth and open up areas to animal traffic. Because we treat all wildfires as equally bad and suppress them completely, eventually the overgrowth causes the wildfires that happen anyway to be even more devastating. So I would direct the fire department to stage controlled burnings in certain places to burn away the excessive growth. If you are so concerned about excessive growth, the obvious solution is to hire a lumber company to cut down some of the trees. The company will supply us with wood for building materials, and we will make a profit as a result. That's much better than controlled burnings. I don't trust lumber companies to serve the public trust. They will be motivated solely by profit. What's to stop them from clear-cutting entire sections of the land and doing more harm than good? Once you remove all the trees, the soil will be eroded away, making the restoration of the land even harder. Isn't our school made largely of wood? Where do you think that wood came from?
Gentlemen, what changes would you make in running this town once you become mayor?
I would fully endorse most of Mayor Smith's policies. The only thing I would change would be to further increase funding for the public schools. Unfortunately, Mayor Smith did almost nothing to pay down the town's public debt, and I think that should be our highest priority. We expect individuals to be financially responsible, but not our governments. I won't raise sales taxes, they are high enough, so we should cut back on city services until the town's $100 million debt is paid off. Looks like you goofed, Wayne. Charlie, your vital signs are stable, and I have cleared you for the bottom surgery. You have requested to remove your uterus and ovaries and replace them with an artificial penis. Unfortunately, as a general doctor, I have no experience with gender reassignment procedures. I would have to send you to a specialist.
I have already chosen one in San Francisco, so Whitney and I will be going there next week. She is paying for the surgery.
That's very generous. She must really love you. Good luck.
So you and Charlie are getting married?
Yes, I've already spoken with Reverend Emily Denton about it. She will perform the ceremony for us and then Charlie will move in here.
I'm actually surprised things turned out so well for you two. When Charlie was known as Charlotte and was considered a girl, she never wanted to date anyone. My wife and I couldn't understand why she avoided boys so much. It wasn't until she left the home at 18 and demanded to be called Charlie instead that we realized that she, or rather he, couldn't date boys because to him, that would have made him feel gay, and he insisted he wasn't and that he could only love women. But most women rejected him too, because they were not lesbian. You are actually the first woman who could accept him as he is.
Well, I had my own experience with another young woman that convinced me that it didn't matter what is between your legs, but what is in your heart. Love is love.
This feels like a boomerang. Both of us have had to leave this town for different reasons only to come back here. I really hope I don't have to leave again.
Me too. I'm so sick of the hypocrisy and bigotry that used to dominate this town, and I am so thankful we cleaned it out over the past decade.
The funding and then restructuring the town's police force from top to bottom proved to be the right thing for everyone involved. What Sandy Smith and I pulled off here was a de facto revolution. Now you two go out and serve this town.
Maybe you shouldn't have made that comment about wanting to defund the town's services. People are not going to take kindly to that no matter what your motive is for doing it.
What do you suggest instead? Because the public debt of the town will not go away.
You can wait until you get elected and then defund the services. But only to a moderate degree, and accompany that with a moderate tax hike. Sudden changes can only be disruptive to most of the people.
But sudden change is exactly what Sandy Smith caused when she took office.
Yes, because the previous mayor's policies were so extreme that they had to be changed drastically. He betrayed all of us for his far-right agendas. Carrie and I got a letter from an aunt and uncle of Charles today. They say they want custody of Annika, Charles' niece. Where do they live? In Dallas. They say because gay marriage is no longer recognized in Texas, Carrie and I no longer have a legal basis to keep Annika with us and she should be with her blood relatives anyway. That's bigotry. Maybe we should go to court to stop this. Honey, do you even know these people who say they want you?
No, I've never met them. I want to stay here, please. I've moved around so much.
I know. Carrie and I will fight for you.
Mother Jessica, are you worried that the state authorities may take me away from you now that your marriage is made illegal?
Lucy and I have filed a motion in court to list you as only Lucy's daughter legally, though in my heart you will also be my daughter. Lucy is my wife and no court or state government should say otherwise. And we will fight to keep you as our daughter, no matter what.
Actually, I'd like to offer my own solution to the problem. I want to marry Paul Jenkins. If he and I tie the knot and then move in with Paul's aunt, Then it won't matter if you have a legal marriage or not, nor will you have to keep custody of me.
Are you sure about that? You are only 16.
Debbie and Carrie were not quite 16 when they got married, and they turned out so well. Paul and I are totally committed to each other.
Let me talk to Carla about this. So you want Paul and Vicky to get married and them to live with me? It was Vicky's idea. She says it will allow her to stay in this town and thus stay close to me and Lucy as her mothers. Well, if this was coming from anyone else and involved anyone other than Vicky, I'd refuse to go along with this crazy plan. But I don't doubt how deeply Vicky and Paul need to do this. I'll never forget how sad Paul was after you and Vicky left for Boston, and how the light returned to his eyes when she returned. They absolutely belong together. Just as you and Lucy belong together with Vicky as her mothers.
So you are actually cool with this? I mean, we would have been happy to wait until we were out of high school, but if this is what Vicky wants, so be it. She is the most amazing person in my life.
Then on your next date with Vicky, you will need to start making plans. I suggest you consult with Debbie and Carrie. They got married at about your age, so they know what needs to be done.
Debbie, Carrie, Vicky and Paul meet up at the UU church with Reverend Emily Dunn to discuss the option of marriage.
So you are not doing this because you are pregnant?
No, in fact I've already decided that I don't want to have children, and if we do change our minds later, I still don't need to have a baby from my own body. We can adopt just as I was adopted. I want to devote my whole life to serving others, and that's a lot harder to do when you are caring for kids of your own. No offense, Carrie and Debbie. I do love being an aunt to Richard.
None taken. You have to live your own life according to what's best for you. You have my absolute support.
Vicky and I will live with my Aunt Carla. We have 2 more years of high school to go, and as soon as we graduate we will look for jobs to support the household. I'm already looking into trade schools. Eric Sterling has suggested I could be an auto mechanic like him, and he has offered to train me on everything he knows.
Looks like you and Vicky are on the right track.
Note that part of Eric Sterling's boss in the next scene will be played by Buck Andrews, but his name will be Andrew Buckingham. Eric, how is your new baby? She's awesome. Bella is doing great as a mother. Linda is her pride and joy. Good. I'd like to ask a favor of you. Would you be interested in taking over this business? My mother just came down with a massive stroke, and she needs someone to take care of her, and I'm the only one who can do it. But I'd have to leave this town and move to San Antonio where my mother lives. You are one of my best employees in the 30 years I've been here, so I think I can trust you to run it in my place. I'd be honored, Mr. Buckingham. Thank you! Good luck, Eric. We will sign the document confirming the ownership transfer tomorrow.
Pregnancy and motherhood are much harder than I thought they would be. I am amazed that both you and my own mother went through 2 pregnancies and came out so well.
It's just something you have to adapt to. Thankfully, you have Eric and your brother to help you.
Oh, Eric, certainly. But Sean, not so much. Ever since our mother died we have grown distant. He spends so much time away from home and we don't talk much anymore. And he never offers to help take care of Linda. He is useless around here.
Well, that doesn't sound good.
I'm so glad you are my girlfriend. I didn't choose for my mother to die in that disaster, nor for my sister to marry and have a baby so young, but I have chosen you. As long as you spend time with me, I am happy.
And you are not bothered by my spending time also with my clients as a sex worker?
No, that's your business. You told me what you were from the start, and if it was a problem for me, I never would have asked you to be my lover at all. You can sleep with whoever you want and take money while doing it. Just don't abandon or betray me.
I promise I won't. I love you, Sean. You can always make love to me for free.
Then let's go back to your place for some privacy. Debbie and her mother appear in court to meet with Annika's relatives.
We are glad to finally meet you, Mr. and Mrs. McKenzie. I hope we can settle this matter soon.
Us too. But perhaps we should get to know each other before we decide what should happen to Annika. First, let us say how commendable it is that your daughter and her wife were willing to take in a child completely unrelated to them after the tragic death of Annika's uncle.
We were acting in accordance with Charles' will and testament, which specifically named me and my wife Carrie as the ones to take care of Annika if something happened to Charles and his husband Michael. I think the biggest question we have is why Charles would not name any of his blood relatives in his will.
My nephew is Charles' father. So we only found out what was going on after Charles and Michael were killed. Charles was disowned for being gay, while his sister was treated as the golden child. But it was the sister, Jamie, that turned into a drug addict and criminal. Then she was murdered. Then Charles' parents refused to take Annika in, and so Charles had to.
Regardless of how you view homosexuality, there is no good reason to reject a child like Annika. She was innocent. So we have condemned our nephew and his wife for refusing to step up and take responsibility for Annika. She is their granddaughter. Her welfare should be what matters.
I think we can all agree on that, so we want to make you an offer. Annika herself has said she wants to remain with me and Carrie, but we can allow you visitation rights to her and even arrange for her to visit you and perhaps stay over with you during the summer months. Considering how Annika was traumatized by losing first her mother and then her uncles, losing yet another set of parents would be even worse. She needs stability in her life. But she would clearly benefit from having contact often with you too. I do have a question, though. The letter we got from you made an issue of my marriage to Carrie being invalidated by the state of Texas. That made us think you were homophobes.
No, that letter was written on our behalf by our lawyer at the time. When I saw what he had written, he was fired.
As black people, we realized we would be hypocrites to endorse one form of bigotry, homophobia, while being against another, racism. We had assumed you only took in Annika because Charles will had forced you to, but it is clear you truly have her best interests at heart. We appreciate your consideration of both her and us in this matter.
So now it is settled. Let us draw up the terms for Annika's custody and then file the documents in court.
And so an out-of-court settlement was reached that day. Good evening and welcome to the Rouge Scumpa Show. We have a disturbing report from Texas. Sandy Smith, who is mayor of her small town there, has abandoned her office rather than face the voters in the upcoming election. Instead, she is now running for a place in the Texas State Senate, and thus continuing her vendetta against Ted Anderson, who she replaced as mayor in the town 4 years ago. He is also running for that same office. Clearly her political ambitions know no bounds. She is obsessed with imposing her socialist agenda not only in one small town where it would do limited damage, but across all of Texas. She and her fellow Democrats will surely ruin the economy of their state all to satisfy their lust for power. What's it going to take to stop this madness? As an atheist, she hates the great religion of Christianity and therefore has no legitimate moral values. Why else would she insist that killing unborn babies be legal here again, along with gay marriage and the sale and use of marijuana? What next? Legalizing incest and bestiality? Where will the corruption of these liberals end?
Wow, he's really getting desperate, isn't he? Let him rant. We have our own web-based news network. I'm just glad Jason Laker was able to keep it running for us while we were gone. Yeah, but we need to have a consistent title for our show. First it was the Queer Avengers, when the two of us were working with Suzanne and Laura, then it was the Debbie and Carrie Show when it was just us two, and then the Jason and Olivia Laker Show. We need a title that includes all of us. That's it. We can call it the America for All Show. And we will deal with all sorts of issues besides those of the LGBT community. Remember that interview Laura did with the black doctor who works in Compton? We should do more stories like that. Debbie, you're brilliant. Inclusiveness and diversity of voices is exactly what our network needs. If we can form alliances with other marginalized people, we can all make a difference. Okay, let's do this. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening and welcome to the America for All show. Today, I have this to share from my own sister Vicky, who wrote the original essay when she was in Boston and had to deal with bullies there who sought to make her miserable for being different from them. Okay. Roll 'em.
My name is Vicky Sims. No doubt many of you have read or heard terrible things about me, so I have written this essay to set the record straight. Yes, I was born to a woman who was a prostitute, and I have no idea who my genetic father is, nor does it matter. I had no choice about this matter. Strictly speaking, there are no illegitimate children, only illegitimate parents. My birth mother made choices to both get hooked on drugs and to become a sex worker to feed her drug habit. She became so obsessed with making as much money as possible that she even allowed pedophiles to rape me after they offered her money to do this. I was also used a lot in child porn. But I was so messed up that I thought this was normal, and it wasn't until I was 7 and my Uncle Brad found out what was happening that he reported it to the authorities, causing his sister to be sent to prison. But my uncle already had 3 kids, and he was impoverished, so I was put in various foster homes. But until I was 12, no one wanted to adopt me, mainly because I had contracted HIV from one of my rapists. Then a couple of lesbians, Lucy and Jessica Sims, came into my life. After learning of my plight, they decided to adopt me. This is why I find it strange that some people are opposed to LGBT people adopting children. Would it have been better for me to still be in foster care? No. With the Sims, I not only gained 2 loving mothers, but also a sister, who is bisexual, a sister-in-law who is also lesbian, and other relatives by adoption who have loved and supported me far more than my birth mother ever did. There is a huge difference between being sexually deviant, like LGBT people are, and being sexually violent like my birth mother and her perverted clients were. In addition to giving me a better life, my mothers introduced me to their religion, Unitarian Universalism. The first principle of this religion is the inherent worth and dignity of all people, including me. Because I was told I was worthy of love, I learned how to love others in turn. And as a result, I now want to be a UU minister so I can help others just as I was helped. Giving spiritual and moral guidance is my calling, and I hope you will support my efforts.
Because Vicky Sims was able to get the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth about herself out, she was able to discredit the bullies and gain her own following. Then she won the fight to make her school more ethical, even exposing a corrupt teacher who was sexually exploiting some of her own students. And what Vicky did for her school, Sandy Smith wants to do for Texas. That is why she is running for the Texas State Senate after serving so well as our town's mayor. Corruption and bigotry can never be excused, and we must elect more and more people dedicated to opposing them, not making excuses for them using extremist religion as their motivation. The Founding Fathers of America made the United States a secular nation. We honor their legacy by opposing conservative bigots today. That is so awesome. Thank you. Give me that video you made of Vicky so I can upload it on my own YouTube channel and use it on my campaign. She is living proof that one person standing up for truth and justice can make a difference. And I can do no less now and here.
Sandy Smith and her supporters go to another town to campaign for her to be elected to the Texas State Senate.
It's so ironic that this reminds me of when I was a little girl and my mother and my sister would walk door to door to try to recruit people into the Jehovah's Witness cult.
Well, we don't have to do this if it bothers you so much.
Oh, but I believe in Sandy. She was awesome as our mayor, and she will do well as our state senator too. We need more people like her in Austin. Now you go put up a couple of flyers on street corners while I try to talk to the neighbors here. My name is Lucy Sims, and I am trying to get the word out about Sandy Smith running for the Texas State Senate.
Sorry, I have little interest in politics. The last time I voted was in 2016, for Donald Trump.
Oh, never mind, then. Sorry to have bothered you. It looks like Ted Anderson has already posted flyers all over this town, and every one of them emphasize his Christian values. What about the issue of church and state separation? I told you this would be an uphill battle. Most people in small towns like ours and this one have been brainwashed by right-wing talk radio and Fox News, among other media outlets, and also their churches, to believe in traditional values that really have nothing to do with Christian teachings. It's all about reinforcing prejudices that people were brought up with.
Aren't you Carrie Sims?
Yes, that's right.
I'm so happy to meet you. You and your wife Debbie are my heroes. My sister and I watched the Blazing Beauty show, and we saw that episode in which you and Debbie became superheroes. Then we looked you up on the internet and found a ton of information, including videos of you made by Dale's husband, and your news podcasts. Are you still doing those?
Yes, we are. We are trying to reach out to all sorts of people, and our network is now called America for All.
I read about where you actually took on a guy twice your size, and a cop to boot, and you beat the crap out of him. I've also been reading about your religion. You'd be amazed at how many fans you have amongst people in my age group. Unfortunately, I am not old enough to vote, and my parents think you are a public menace.
Well, in a few years you and others like you will be able to vote, and then maybe you can make a difference.
Sean, Eric and I are really tired of you being so lazy. You have been out of high school for almost a year, but you don't even look for a job, and you never volunteer to do anything around the house, not even to help me with Linda. But you eat our food and use our electricity. That's not fair. You need to man up and help out.
Were you to criticize me? Our mother never nagged me about doing things around the house.
Well, maybe she should have. I'm tired of busting my butt to do everything around here. If you don't want to contribute to this household in some way, get out. This is your last warning.
Eric, do you agree with her? Of course. Things are a lot harder now with a baby here, so we have no choice but to start charging you rent. $100 a week. You will have 1 month to get a job, any job that can enable you to support us. You remind us of those drones and beehives. They do nothing for the hive except mate with the queen. And you know what happens to them in the fall months? They get kicked out of the hive and left to die. So don't be a drone anymore, Sean.
It was so frustrating having the door slammed in my face so many times. I wonder if all the other candidates have to endure this crap. Probably, but the fact is that you are running as a Democrat in a mostly Republican district. The rural areas of Texas are overwhelmingly red. Only the large cities are mostly blue, while the suburban areas tend to switch back and forth between the major parties. And why should it be so different? Aren't we all one society? Mother, there is a man named Charles Minard who wants to meet you. That name sounds familiar. Oh, he is an attorney I used to work with in court cases. I first met him shortly after I moved to this town. Hello, Charles. So what brings you here?
I have just thrown my hat into the ring to run for the Texas State Senate as a Republican, only to learn that in doing so I'd be going up against you in the general election. But before that I must face Ted Anderson in the Republican primaries. Since he has more political experience than me, fighting him will be an uphill battle. Which is why I want to ask for your help.
My help? Even though we belong to opposing parties?
Yes, because we both despise Ted Anderson. Let's face it, the Democrats and Republicans in most southern states have not been competitive with each other. After the Civil War, the conservative Democrats dominated the South for nearly a century until the party turned liberal in the 1960s. Then most Southern whites became Republicans as that party became conservative. So in most elections, the real battle is among the conservative candidates of any party, and then the general election is an afterthought.
Right, and the state legislatures gerrymander the districts to maintain the majority of the party in power. It's sickening how they subvert our democracy to benefit the elitists.
But that's the system we have to work in. Fortunately, Texas is an open primary state, meaning you don't have to declare your party affiliation before voting in a primary. So, if you were to endorse me and urge your supporters to vote for me in the primary elections, I might be able to defeat Ted Anderson. And in return, once I go to Austin, I will fight for LGBT rights in the Texas legislature, just as you would have.
Very well, I accept your offer. As long as Ted Anderson is defeated, I will be satisfied. What's wrong? You are going to sell yourself out and abandon your supporters to make a political deal, that's what. I will never vote for any Republican even if you ask me to. Right, and because of that, your interests will have no representation in Austin. At least this way we will have someone who is not a crazed theocrat and is pro-LGBT representing us. That was always my concern. It was never about getting me elected. So you are dropping out of the race? No, I will stay in, but if Ted Anderson is defeated in the Republican primary then I won't campaign against Charles Maynard. I won't even mention him at all. Maybe you shouldn't talk about Ted Anderson either. Republicans are likely to think they should vote for him just because you oppose him. Since you are already running for mayor, maybe you can contact Charles Maynard and offer to endorse his campaign to be state senator in exchange for his endorsing you to be mayor of our town.
And then that would lead to Ted Anderson losing. So be it. I will contact Mr. Maynard and offer to help him.
Paul, I'm not opposed to you and Vicky getting married someday. It's just the timing and the motivation behind it seems all wrong.
I understand that, but Vicky and I are doing this because I love her and I want her to be happy. And being with her mothers Lucy and Jessica as well as me makes her life complete.
And there is my cue to leave. Call me if you need a ride home.
I got a text message from Whitney Owen today. She said that Charlie Wilson's bottom surgery was successful. But it will take weeks for him to recover, so they will stay in San Francisco for the rest of the month.
That's good, but why tell me this? I don't know Charlie that well.
Carrie introduced me to Charlie. Anyway, I was wondering if we could have a double wedding. We could get married and then at the same day and place Whitney and Charlie could also be married. Then the four of us could go on a honeymoon together.
That would complicate things too much for my liking. Plus I want our wedding to be all about us. Why share it with anyone else?
I just thought I'd suggest it as a means of helping the other couple.
Have you talked about this with Charlie and Whitney?
No, I just now thought of it.
Then just leave it as a helpful thought. If we were related to the other couple, your idea would make sense. We aren't, so it doesn't.
Oh no. Is that who I think it is?
Who, Vicky?
Rose Dawson, the older sister of Hermine and George. And she is a prostitute who was disowned by her mother. Hermine told me about her.
And knowing your birth mother was also a prostitute and abused you, I can understand why you abhor that sort of thing. But maybe you are wrong about Rose?
Okay, sweetie, what do you want to eat?
A ham sandwich and potato chips, please.
Those two are dating? That's Sean Flowers, Bella's brother. And she is a decade older than him. I wonder how Bella would react if she knew what her brother was up to.
It might be better not to tell her. It's none of your business.
The relationship between that corrupt teacher in Boston and her students she was having sex with was none of my business, supposedly, but the principal of the school thanked me for exposing the teacher. How is this case here any different?
I see. If Sean thinks he is doing the right thing, He shouldn't care that his sister knows about it. Vicky then pulls out her cell phone and uses its built-in camera to take a pic of Rose and Sean just as they kiss.
I don't have Bella on my phone, though. So who should I give this pic to? Carrie, who is Bella's friend? Or Hermine's and Rose's mother?
Carrie would seem the obvious choice. She can then pass the pic on to Bella.
So I was interviewing the suspect and he said, "What's this?" Well, it seems my sister has been doing some detective work of her own. Excuse me.
Carrie then sends a copy of the pic to Bella, with a description of what's in the pic. As a member of the police force, Carrie knows who Rose is and what she does.
So that's why Sean has been so lazy and has been going out so much. He has been corrupted by a streetwalker. As soon as I get off work, I will tell Eric and then we will decide what to do with Sean.
Vicky goes to visit Hermine and her mother after her encounter with Rose Dawson and Sean Flowers.
I had Rose when I was very young, about age 15. Her father was a man in his 20s. I was young, dumb and in love. After I got pregnant with Rose, my parents were furious and they had my boyfriend arrested for statutory rape. But they also forced me to have Rose and keep her to teach me a lesson. I should have been allowed to terminate the pregnancy. I was unable to finish high school and had to work to support me and Rose instead. Then as an adult I moved away from my parents and their toxic environment. Then I met Mark, the man who would become my husband, and the father of George and Hermine. He had a successful career in business and I was desperate for some stability in my and Rose's lives, so after only a few months, I married him. Then I found out that he was a raging alcoholic. But by then I was pregnant with George, so I felt trapped. I then had Hermine. Mark treated George like a prince and scorned both of my daughters. And, of course, you know that he blinded Hermine. By then Rose had left the home, so angry was she at me for marrying Mark. Then I found out she was a prostitute and porn star. I couldn't accept that, so I disowned her. And then George turned out to be a criminal too. Only Hermine has been the kind of child I wanted.
So you went from one toxic situation to an even worse one. Anyway, Rose is now dating Sean Flowers, the brother of Bella Sterling and the son of Deborah Flowers. It's possible that Sean turned to Rose for comfort because of losing his mother. And of course, Rose has lost both her parents. Maybe if you had been more tolerant of Rose, she wouldn't have become a sex worker. Rose told me that Mark had molested her as a teen and I didn't believe her. Maybe if I had, Hermine would not be blind now. This is all my fault. Mother, I don't blame you for what happened to me. That's all on Father. And as for Rose, she is still my sister. Maybe it is not too late to repair our relationship with her. My mother was a prostitute and made my life a living hell when I was a little girl. I don't think you should have that kind of corruption in your life. Nor should Sean Flowers.
Bella, why have you asked to see me?
I found out what you have been doing when you go out all the time. You've been dating a prostitute, haven't you?
What? How did you find out?
I was sent this pic of you and her. Sean Flowers, you have disgraced our family.
Now hold on. Considering some of the things you have done in your life, who are you to judge me?
It's true that Eric and I made mistakes as teens. Like when we ran away from my mother to stay with Eric's uncle in a cave. But we learned from those, and when Linda gets older, we will teach her about them so she won't repeat them. But even I would never be a prostitute or have a friend who is one. And yet you have one as your girlfriend.
Sean, Bella and I took you in because we felt sorry for you after you and Bella lost your mother. And this is how you repay us? You have clearly worn out your welcome. Go live with that prostitute if you love her more than you love us in your knees. Rose, my sister and my brother-in-law found out about you and have rejected me because of you. Can I live with you instead?
I was afraid this would eventually happen. That's why it would have been better for you to have avoided me after that first encounter we had. But now we must deal with the consequences. Of course you can come live with me.
Wayne Bentley hosts a political rally in the town, and the special guest speaker is Charles Maynard. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many supporters here at this rally. I intend to be a champion of financial responsibility and the promotion of business interests in this town. The more small businesses we can start in this town, the better, so our town can make more money. At this time I am proud to introduce the one I want to see become our next representative in the Texas State Senate, Charles Maynard.
Thank you, Mr. Bentley. At this time, I will accept questions from the audience.
Hello. I am Olivia Laker of the America for All Network. Can you tell us your position on gun control?
Sure, like most other Republicans, I oppose gun control, considering it unnecessary and counterproductive. The Founding Fathers understood that the right of the people to bear arms was necessary to protect our freedom. The fact that the common people in the American colonies had their own guns enabled the American Revolution to happen. Even today, we honor the legacy of that revolution by making future revolutions possible.
Right. So all those innocent people that get slaughtered in mass shootings every year are just collateral damage, eh? How can anyone be free if they are dead? And your party is the one most likely to take away our freedoms, damn it.
Meanwhile, Olivia's husband Jason is on a different assignment. George Anderson, you are the son of Ted Anderson, who was the mayor of the town we both came from, and you yourself was its police chief before you were sent here for an act of attempted arson. So, why have you asked to speak to the press now?
After I was convicted of that crime, my father made an appearance on the Rouge Scumpa show. He claimed my act was entirely my own, but that's not true. Everything I did as police chief was to support my father. He repeatedly told me and others he wanted us to get rid of the Sims lesbian couple and their daughters, along with Sandy Smith and her children. Burning down the Tuscany Tavern was all about that. I was so loyal to my father, and in turn he throws me under the bus.
Plausible deniability is something many politicians who are involved in scandals may benefit from. But you said there was more to reveal.
That's right. You are probably aware that about 3 years after my father first became mayor, our town's water supply became contaminated because its sewage treatment system failed.
Yes. Because your father stopped funding for the system.
True, but also because I sabotaged the system. My father ordered me to do that.
What? Why would he do such a crazy thing?
Because my father is a friend of Leonard Wilson, who was a co-owner of the local hospital. Mr. Wilson said that he wanted to increase profits for the hospital.
Oh my God. Leonard Wilson is the father of Ted Wilson. By the way, he is no longer involved with the hospital, but his brother Simon is. Could Simon have also been involved in this conspiracy?
I can't confirm that. I just know what I was told and what I was ordered to do. My father constantly demanded loyalty to him, but when it came time for him to support me, he backstabbed me instead. And he never visits me in prison either.
Thank you for your statement. Jason then calls Carrie with this news. And Carrie is furious, so the following day she goes to confront Simon Wilson about it at the school.
Do I have to explain to you how outrageous this situation is? People died because of tap water being contaminated. If you were involved, you belong in prison.
I swear, I knew nothing about it. My brother was much more involved in running the hospital than I was, because of my work here at the school. Just because my brother is a greedy backstabber doesn't make me one. Indeed, your willingness in the past to allow us to discipline your nephew when he was causing trouble here is a sign of your integrity. Officer Sims, you will need actual evidence against Simon Wilson before I can fire him from the school. Speaking of evidence, I am willing to allow Officer Sims to look at the hospital records to try to confirm George Anderson's story. If the sewage treatment system was indeed sabotaged and didn't merely break down, then the number of patients being treated for waterborne illnesses would immediately skyrocket and wouldn't increase gradually. And so Carrie gets a search warrant, and then she and the other members of the town's police force conduct an analysis of the hospital records. And within a week.
As you can see,
Hospitalizations due to contaminated water increased tenfold in a few months after the time George Anderson said he was ordered to sabotage the town's water supply. And they remained high until Sandy Smith had the sewage treatment plant fixed. It seems everything Ted Anderson did when he was mayor before me was about promoting business interests. Contaminated tap water increased business for the hospital and also increased sales of bottled water. And neglecting the road increased business for tire and auto repair companies.
But how many people died because of this? How many were bankrupted? How many lives were ruined just because a few people already powerful around here wanted to be even more powerful? It seems most of the leading citizens of this town I used to admire, like Reverend Dave Owen, Ted Anderson, and Leonard Wilson, betrayed the rest of us for the sake of profit. Reverend Owen was part owner of the hospital too, by the way, so he also benefited from this scandal.
Indeed he was. I guess I was wrong to just focus on teaching science and trust my brother to do most of the overseeing of the hospital's finances. I wonder if I should resign as my school science teacher and withdraw from the mayor's race too.
That's something you need to discuss with Mr. Hernandez. But in the meantime, we should certainly go after Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson for what they have done. We will make them pay. Literally. Yes. A massive lawsuit against those two is what we need. And I will file it. About a month after I, Carrie, and Lucy first moved to this town, Carrie got sick. She was vomiting constantly and couldn't even hold water down. We had to take her to the hospital and she had to have an IV put in her arm to get hydration and nutrients until her stomach could recover and function normally again. My mother sent us a water filter which we attached to our kitchen faucet, and after that Carrie never got sick again. Do you still have the records of the hospital stay and how much it cost? Yes. I will bring those records to you. Good. Once I have that information, I will file my lawsuit against Ted Anderson and Leonard Wilson with Carrie as a co-plaintiff. By making this lawsuit personal and not just an issue of bad tap water hurting the town's people in general, we can gain more sympathy from a jury. I can't wait to face those bastards in court and tell what happened to me. Indeed, Carrie was one of the first people we know of who got sick from drinking the town's water supply. Jessica and I had assumed we were an isolated incident, until we learned from Dr. Drake during your mayoral campaign that many people were also getting sick from the same issue that almost killed Carrie. So far, the witness list includes George Anderson, Carrie, Dr. Drake, and Simon Wilson. I will ask Simon and Whitney Owen to provide a list of all the people who were treated for waterborne illnesses at the hospital. Then I will contact them and ask for their statements too. If we win our lawsuit, they will be entitled to compensation. Mother, I apologize. I accused you of selling out to Mr. Maynard, but now I understand that fighting this legal action against Ted Anderson over his ruining our town's water supply is far more important than running against him in the Texas State Senate race. It's okay, honey. You had reason to be upset. And there is no reason why I can't do both at the same time. Indeed, one is naturally related to the other. Speaking of which...
Yes! Give me all the details as soon as you can so I can put out political ads blasting Ted Anderson. I will then bury him next month.
Now that I and Charlie are back from San Francisco, I will certainly dig through those hospital records to get all the information you need to make a damning case against Ted Anderson. Look at Charlie now.
Hello! Like what you see? I think I look better, and I certainly feel better now that my genitals look more like what I feel on the inside. No more periods too.
As long as you are happy with yourself, that's what matters.
Meanwhile, at the Dallas headquarters of the Aphrodite Modeling Agency.
Coming back to visit us. And for bringing your sister-in-law. Vicky Sims, you indeed look perfect for our upcoming summer campaign. Let's put you in a bathing suit and have you appear on the beach set.
Awesome. Ready when you are? Okay, Vicky, let me get the camera and we will start shooting. Ready.
She seems like such a natural at this, almost like she has been modeling all her life. She could make a career out of this. Yes, but she won't. She is only doing this so she can earn money to pay for her own wedding instead of having mothers Jessica and Lucy pay for it.
Debbie, this is Simon Wilson. Do you know someone named Rebecca Smith?
Yes, she is my cousin, but we have nothing to do with her because she is a total disgrace to our family.
Likewise, Ted is a disgrace to mine. And yet somehow those two have gotten together. He actually married her in a private ceremony.
What? Are you serious?
According to my brother, Ted and Rebecca made contact via social media. They began swapping stories about their dealings with you and Carrie, and then they fell in love. Now they are living together with my brother in Plano and are already planning on having kids.
My cousin, the breeding machine. She already has 5 kids she was unwilling to take care of. As far as I am concerned, Ted and Rebecca deserve each other. Goodbye. Oh my God, Simon Wilson was right. Look at this video on Rebecca's Facebook page. That reminds me of when Diana Callie married my Uncle Simon, and we know how badly that ended later. Right. Plus Diana Callie is now dead. Want to bet something terrible will happen to Ted or Rebecca in the future? Perhaps. But I prefer not to think of them at all.